Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. In this Israel Keys video, I'll be discussing another missing person who could potentially be another victim of Israel Keys. Hope you enjoy. The FBI were confident in their belief that Israel was telling them the truth when it came to having 4 victims in the state of Washington. Early on in the investigation into determining these victims' identities, the name Delmar Wayne Sample came up. Last seen on March 4th of 2005 at 11 AM on CCTV surveillance at a gas station along Interstate 5 purchasing fuel, Delmar was heading to Tillamook, Oregon to spend the weekend in the wilderness. This is what he had told a friend according to the FBI files. I could find no record of this elsewhere online as I did research for this video. The gas station was just north of his home in Onalaska, which is in Washington. Park rangers had become suspicious of a truck parked beside South Shore Road near Quinault, Washington, because the owner hadn't seemingly registered for overnight camping in the area. The truck's owner not being around had park rangers becoming concerned for the welfare of the driver. Since it was the weekend, not much was done in the first few days. Delmar had gone to spend the weekend in the wilderness after all, and so getting in contact with him would have been difficult. Upon being reported missing on March 7th, having not shown up to his pharmacy job, a search began days later on March 9th. His truck was found a quarter-mile west of the Fletcher Canyon trailhead. Evidently, he had never made it to Oregon, as park rangers had stumbled upon it in Jefferson County, Washington. Upon gaining access to his truck, food and a sleeping bag were left untouched. Everyone became suspicious of the situation, and therefore tyre tracks and any shoe prints nearby were photographed as evidence. A Dr. Pepper can was seized by investigators as it was inside Delmar's vehicle and a latent print was lifted from it. Once the search concluded, everyone was left confused and worried for Delmar's safety. He had purchased a mountain bike not long prior to his disappearance, and that was also missing from his truck. However, there were no tyre markings present that would indicate that he had left on the bike, but it would seem plausible given it not being in his truck. The case quickly went cold, and as the years progressed, the case didn't move along with much success. No clear picture emerged as to where Delmar had gone. His car being in the location where it was did reveal that Delmar had never made it to his intended destination. Had he changed his mind about travelling south into Oregon? Had he decided on spending time in Washington? All of the questions as to what could have happened left everyone stumped. Delmar's friends maintained hope, but with so much time having flown by, the case specifics had many theorising that foul play could be involved. According to his close friends, he hadn't shown depressive symptoms, and he wouldn't just run away from his life. He spent time in the outdoors often, and so an accident in the wilderness or foul play seemed like the two most conclusive explanations. It would be many years later in 2014 when Israel was looked into as a possible suspect. Was he possibly involved? The Dr. Pepper can print was sent to be tested and compared to his, and the results of this haven't been released to my knowledge. If they were positive, then I would assume that he would have been named publicly as a prime suspect. The disappearance being connected to him seemed promising at first, but on looking deeper it seemed like a bit of a stretch. This speculation was put forth because of the timing element of where Israel was at the time, and sure, we know that he kept a narrow time frame when it came to conducting criminal activity and that he moved victim cars. His cell phone suggested that he was heading east on the evening of March 4th and not moving south in the direction of where Delmar was. There is a possibility that Israel was visiting a female companion, according to the FBI files, on that same weekend in Sequim, Washington. And whether this was just another one of his alibis is unclear. The exact date that Delmar went missing isn't entirely known though. He was last seen on the 4th, but if Israel was involved then it doesn't necessarily narrow down any abduction date. Since Israel was now deceased, getting his reaction to a possible victim photograph like Deborah Feldman for instance, wasn't going to be possible with this case. With cases like Delmar Wayne Samples, theorising on what could have happened may forever remain a mystery. With no new updates and no real leads, the possibilities are seemingly endless. Had foul play occurred? Had Delmar been in some sort of accident along the trail? Had he hidden depressive signs and taken his own life in the wilderness? Whatever the end result, hopefully answers will surface in the near future and family and friends of Delmar can gain some resolution to the mystery that has been on their minds for many years. I'm conflicted on whether this case is connected to Israel Keys. It sounds promising, but there's little physical evidence tying Israel to it. Everything is circumstantial evidence at this time, and that doesn't really help on building links to him. This has been the Israel Keys potential victim case of Delmar Wayne Sample. As always, thank you for watching.